welcome back to another episode of Pause Pod, the podcast where two gals that love film try to yap their way into becoming indie darlings. I'm Kara.
And I am Danny. And welcome, Care Bear. How are we doing today?
We're good. You know, I feel like I have a new lease on life because I was
Oh my God.
recently sick.
Right. I do
So
know this.
I am a phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm like washing the sheets. I'm like washing every throw blanket in my house, every towel. I'm cleansing. Because being sick in the summer is like rank. Like, because at least when
Right.
you're sick in the winter, like at least you're indulging in the vibes that are already there. Like you're snuggle bugging it. You
Mhm.
have hot drinks, hot food. Yes, you feel ill, but like you're hibernating because that's the vibe. In summer, it's like, what am I doing?
Mm,
I felt
I
a
feel.
dissonance that added to my ennui on top of being in pain from my throat. But I'm better now. How are you?
I I'm so happy that you feel better.
Thanks.
Um, I'm feeling good. I feel good. I told you that I'm on my matcha journey.
Guys,
Um,
this is one of the best things to ever happen to me. Peek behind the curtain. I can't drink coffee
no.
because my stomach is a bitch. And also, I just can't handle it. Like my cheeks
Yeah, the
turn red.
caffeine.
I just can't. Something about Miss Covfefe I can't do. And so I love matcha. And I am not new to this. I am true to this. Okay? And like no hate because I love that all the girls are uniting in matcha, but I just want people to know. Okay? I've been here since
You've
the
been an
beginning.
OG.
I've been an
You've been
OG.
an OG.
And now Danny, who could not drink matcha before without a healthy dose of lavender and sugar, is now going on her own journey. I'm so
Mind
proud.
you, mind you, it's still stock full of sugar. Like let us not
Baby
think
steps.
anything different. But my very own strawberry syrup,
She's
homemade.
a homemaker.
I'm a homemaker. And then in the spirit of fall, upcoming fall, I have decided that it is now fall in my heart and in my mind. Um, I made a banana bread syrup.
Oh, that was one of the sexiest things you've ever said.
It's
I felt
so
that.
good. It's so good. It's so good. And then I have some cherries in my freezer. So I might
Oh.
make a cherry syrup when I'm done with my strawberry one. But there, guys, I'm like into syrups, y'all, into homemade syrups. I've seen so many. I just can't wait until like pumpkin hits the shelf again and I can start making
Oh.
my own pumpkin spice syrup. However, argue. I believe that apple is the superior flavor of fall to pumpkin.
And here's the thing. This is the simplest way that I can put it is that pumpkin, unless you're roasting it alongside some carrots and some butternut squash, a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, unless you're doing that vibe, if you're adding it to your coffees, your baked goods, pumpkin cannot stand on its own. It needs cinnamon, it
Mm-mm.
needs nutmeg. Apple? Miss Apple can stand all on her own in the flavor department.
Apple can stand on her own. And
And
I
dare I
saw that
say she's more versatile than the pumpkin.
she is. She is more versatile than the pumpkin. But I also saw this thing, this like barista boy that I follow on TikTok. He
Cute.
I know. He made apple caramel, but he was like, "Oh, the only thing you need for caramel is sugar." And he like boiled down apple cider into like a molasses of sort and then added butter to it because that's how you make caramel. And then he made apple caramel and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to put this in my coffee now."
Baking is science.
So catch me all up in the fall whipping it up in the kitchen.
I love that for you. And
Thank you so much.
I think we should point out before we get into this episode that I am looking at a glorious Cowboy Carter patch that your microphone is currently attached to. And if you would also like to see how gorgeous it looks and how gorgeous Danny looks, we are filming this episode.
We in fact are, and it will be on our YouTube channels.
Big
Here we
first
go.
step.
Big first step.
We're gonna be meeting you guys visually. That's a big step.
Visually. I know. Anywho.
But to get into today,
Mhm.
what's that I hear? The ring-a-ding-ding of the opening bell of a showdown? We're stepping into the ring today
Yeah, we are.
because for the first time ever in Pause Pod history, even though this is the second episode, first time ever in our history, we are taking two films head to head.
It's the battle of the superheroes, y'all.
The battle of the summer blockbusters.
And we have our heavy hitters, Superman and the Fantastic Four, up against each other.
DC versus Marvel.
There will be a winner. I want you to go first, actually.
Okay. So should I talk about one film at a time, or should I just give my broad strokes?
Let's do one film at a time, and I feel like we should start with the reigning champ. I think we should start with Marvel.
Okay.
I think we should.
Before I get into this, I want our audience to know how we're entering this wrestling ring. Like what history we're bringing with us. Where do we stand in the zeitgeist of the superhero film, the genre? And I would like you to know that I am a proud member of the Gen Pop, the general population. I enjoy going to see a superhero film. I love being thrilled. I love being swept away. But I don't think I'm like a consistent fan. I go when my brother or Danny tells me to go. And you know what? They don't lead me astray. But that's the energy I'm bringing to the function. Danny, however, Danny is a Marvel superhero expert. So much so that when we first moved in together living in London, and Danny found out that I had, to generously put it, a scattered knowledge of Marvel films, she took it upon herself to give me a Marvel education, complete with an opening PowerPoint and a Captain America themed dessert. And if that isn't friendship, I don't know what is. So I'm now more educated than I was. But that's the energy I'm bringing to the function. And I have to say, I'm going to attack Fantastic Four with a pro-con list because I think it's necessary. I'll start with the positives. Pros. I loved the aesthetic and commitment to production design of this film. She was giving Jetson. She was giving Twiggy. It was giving the 60s swing. And I just loved how specific it was. The attention to detail and the style of everyone in the film was very detailed and cohesive. Next, Daddy Pedro can do no wrong. I mean, anything Pedro Pascal says will bring me to tears. And that's a fact. And that's called talent, and that's called craft. And there was one moment where like he's like hovering over Vanessa Kirby's maybe ? Dead body, and a tear from his face falls onto her face and like trickles down to the sound of the score of this film. And I said, brava, bravo, brava. So those are the pros. Moving on.
Oh, two
pros. I have some qualms that I'd like to address because I don't think there was enough interpersonal conflict in this film. And with that, I mean, we can't just be superheroes. I need to know how being a superhero is affecting your relationships, your life. Like, who are the Fantastic Four? How do they relate to each other besides just being like these friends and family who like got superpowers? I didn't feel like I knew them. I didn't feel like I knew how they felt towards each other. And for a film all about a baby, there was so much unmined territory of what's it like to be pregnant while you're a superhero? What conflict does that bring up? How does that affect your relationships? How does that affect how you see yourself as a superhero? And how do other people, your superhero colleagues, feel about it? Like other than just knowing that she was pregnant with this next coming superhero baby, I just didn't know how she felt about it or how anybody felt about it. And I think this is what leads me to my theory of, I think some B storylines were cut out of this film. I have a sneaking suspicion that my girl Natasha Lyonne and my boy Eben Moss Backrack got cut. And why'd you do Cousin Dirty like that? Why'd you do that to him? Because their 2 characters were so interesting to me, and they kept teasing me with these, like, mini scenes of them and, like, him looking in a store window at his body as the Thing, and I'm like, "I wanna know. I wanna know what's going on with you 2. I wanna know how you feel about yourself how as a superhero." Like, there was just seemed like so many surface level teases of, like, really great actors, really great setups, like, really interesting characters that I wanted to know more about, and then we didn't, like, dig deeper? That's my thing. So that's my main qualm. My other qualm was them cutting Natasha Lyonne and Ebon Moss-Backrack suspected. But yeah, but other than that, like, other than me really wanting to know more about the characters and their relationships to each other instead of just the capital T, capital B, the baby, that was a cute baby, but I felt like we put so much on the external conflict of what is happening with this baby, and is Galactus gonna take this baby? And that is good tension, and that is a good external conflict for us to be working towards, but what are the bitty bits along the way? I wanted more bits.
I think with the Marvel, their character like, their character building is throughout like, multiple films. Like, you're not gonna get all of
Yes.
that in one film, and this was meant to just be the start of their like, a background into, like a quick background into who these people are before we bring them into, because the next film that we're gonna see them in is Avengers Doomsday. So, like, they're gonna have to fit into, like, a wider array of characters, and so I don't think that Marvel necessarily is like, "Okay, here's everything about them."
But my
And then
question is, like, if this is meant to be, like, a multi-film journey with these characters, then why not take the time in their origin film to dig into them? Because how am I supposed to know how they're gonna interact with Robert Downey Jr. 2.0? Spoiler if you didn't see the end credit scene.
right.
Um How am I supposed to know? Like, I don't know, for me, like, the joy and fun of seeing a character in this superhuman, supernatural situation is that I feel like I know them and connected with them, and so when you put them in this larger than life conflict, I'm thinking about, like, you know what I mean? Like, in order for me to have stakes with somebody in a supernatural heightened state, I wanna feel, like, some tension or some detail of that person, and I just wasn't I just, like, if Marvel's setting up this franchise and we're thinking about the franchise and, like, no small feat, there are so many plates in the air, and they're weaving this web, and they're doing it brilliantly across all these films, but, like, why not then take the time in this film, like, what is this film? What is this 2 hours instead of this 2 hours in relation to, like, all the other films? You get me? I'm not trying to alienate the Marvel heads here. I'm just trying to ask the hard questions as a general pop.
I get you as a general pop because in theory, that would make sense. In theory, that would make sense. I think in my opinion, in my experience with Marvel is that we had a lot more time to build a character. For example, like, we had more time to get to know Captain America, we had more time to get to know Iron Man, and we didn't have to, like, have his entire character like, we didn't have to get to know his entire character in one film. We got to see him trickled out throughout, and so when the bigger battles happened, like the first Avengers and, like, all of that, when the bigger battles happened, we had a few films and a few cameos in other films where we could, like, see who he was, and I just don't think that Marvel right now, I think they're speed running it, and I think that's why
Mm,
it's you're like, "Oh, I need to like, have a connection to these characters, like, immediately in their first film because we are not sure we're gonna get that in the next ones." Like,
'cause
you know what
everybody's
I
putting
mean?
singles out and nobody's making
It's putting
albums
albums.
anymore.
Everyone's putting singles out, nobody's making albums, and that's what Marvel's first, like few phases, like that's why that one was so impactful, is because we were able to get to know these characters individually and then see them interact with other characters separately and throughout this larger realm. Uh, and so we had time to, when we had the different Avengers films, that we actually cared about these people, like we actually
Mhm.
understood them.
And it's such an interesting way to look see, this is why I need my Marvel consultant, y'all. But it's such an interesting way to look at it because from a storytelling point of view, like, that is such a privilege to build a
Mhm,
character arc, and, like, Iron Man and Captain America, I would argue their character arcs were some of the best over the course of those
mhm,
films. Not only their individual characters, but their that specific relationship to each
mhm,
other. And to clarify, I'm not asking for a whole character arc, a whole,
mm,
thing. Like, if you watch the first Captain America and the first Iron Man, like, they are not complete and they are flawed and they are who they are, but at least I had something to latch on to. Like, they were distinctive characters and enough conflicts were set up, not necessarily resolved, but enough conflict was set up to keep me interested to then see them in another film. But it's interesting, like, where do you toe the line of, like, how much is too much? Like, how much do we give away? How much do we set up? How much do we develop these characters in this first instance to catapult them through this franchise? But those are my thoughts. I don't wanna be so negative. Those were genuinely just questions. Those were genuinely me pondering, having loved the aesthetic of this film, stacked cast, an incredibly made film visually, but I was hungry, I wanted more, and that's my 2 cents.
I agree. I think I just wasn't expecting it from Marvel, therefore I wasn't disappointed, or like I didn't, like I never
Oh.
expected that in the film. Like I came into this expecting like this is going to be a blanket level origin story that's going to fit them into the plot, and then later down the line I can like figure them out some more. Like later down the line we'll have some more that I can grasp onto. I came into this like this is just going to be an origin story and I have to view it as that. Like this was basically just a setup for Doomsday in my opinion.
But that's my whole point, is that this was an origin story, and I don't know who these people are. Therefore,
Vibes.
did it succeed as an origin story?
Yeah. I felt like I understood them to, like, enough. I think you want more, and I think I'm okay.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get into your thoughts on the film then.
Okay.
Let's dig in.
So I came back, my first and front thought is, if I went on a space trip with my best friends, okay? We're out in the world. We come back, we get superpowers. I'm the only one that comes back physically disfigured permanently. I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed.
Which is why there's so much to explore in that character then.
I'm not arguing that there's not enough to explore, Kara. I'm not arguing that. Can I also argue that in Captain America and Iron Man, we're focusing on one character, whereas in this one we do have four, and we do only have a specific amount of time to explore four characters and an entire like external threat.
I'm just saying, if they
You
spent
know
less
what I
time on that
mean?
damn baby, they'd have more time to
But the
explore these
baby is
people.
actually the most important character in the story. I'm so sorry.
Headlines read, Kara's against baby.
And
The pr
it's so unlike me to defend a child.
this film literally turned us upside down, round and round.
It is so unlike me to defend a child. Anyways, moving into um my other points. I want to ask, have you seen the other Fantastic Four?
Yes, where Christopher Jamal Evans graced us as the Human Torch. Yeah, I
Yes.
have. Yeah, I have.
And my question is, did you feel like you knew them?
Yes. The Thing was grappling with his self-image, and whatever the two main couples' names are, their marriage was falling apart. There was a lot going on. There There was a lot going on.
Interesting.
Jessica Alba had me on the edge of my seat.
I felt like these relationships to me were more believable.
Oh, I love when we have differing opinions. That's what makes life fun.
I felt like these were I feel like these were more believable. I do have issues with Reed and Sue in this one.
What are your issues?
Here are my issues. And I feel like maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Sue a little bit pissed me off. Just like the tiniest bit. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I understand that you are postpartum. I understand that brain is going through a lot. Okay. You've been through a lot, mama. You've been through a lot.
You gave birth
In space after a man said that he's going to come and take your baby or destroy the planet that you live on.
Yeah,
You're
that's a
going through a
lot.
lot, mama. You're going through a lot. However, you married, that was your decision, by the way. You married the smartest man on the planet. Like literally the smartest man on the planet. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Literally the smartest man on the planet. You're pissed at Reed because he's empathizing with the people who are banging down at his door, worried that they're all going to get eaten by an external some god that eats planets. You're pissed at him because he thought about the fact that, you know what, these people, they're right to feel like, okay, yeah, the logical decision is for us to give up our baby. Like, obviously, he considered it. Why are you mad at him for considering that? Why are you mad at him for considering that option? Why are you mad? Like, it's not like he was ever going to do it because obviously not. He loves that child and he loves you and whatever. Obviously, it's not a thought. Why are you mad at him for like thinking about it? Why are we mad? Obviously.
We're mad because we don't have any other conflict to be mad
Like
at.
like why are we mad? Why are we mad? And then she was like, sometimes sometimes how you think hurts me. And I'm like, girl, be for real. Be for real. Be for real. Be for real. This is the man you chose to marry. You knew his flaws. You knew his faults. My thing is, she has this statement where she's like, oh, just because I'm not talking about it doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it. And I think in a healthy marriage, especially when there's something as scary as bringing in a child into this world that might have superpowers, maybe possibly you should talk about it.
Were they trying to be like, she turns invisible, therefore she's anti-conflict? Like, she's not a confrontational person, as in, like, she's always, like, turning invisible?
The thing about it is not confrontation, it's having healthy communication with your partner, your life partner.
Very true.
The person you have chosen to do life with.
The person you have chosen.
The person that you share half of this baby with. And you see that this man is freaking out. And instead of like being like, hey, babe, I know how your brain is operating and I know what's going on up there. And I know that you're thinking of 1,000,009 things. And I'm also freaked out. But let's like work on this together. Like, let's talk about where our fears are coming. Like, communicate. And that was my issue. I don't think that they're good at communicating with each other, and that was my problem. Now, moving on to my not problems.
The pros.
My personal pros is I really enjoyed Johnny in this iteration.
He was
Uh,
funny.
well, he was funny. And everybody who knows me knows that I had a little bit of, dare I say, an issue with Joseph Quinn
Yeah,
being
poor
casted.
Quinny. Danny didn't believe he could do the job.
I did not think he couldn't do the job. I did not think that he was hot enough. I'm sorry. We're
Oh,
coming from Christopher Jamal Evans and Michael B. Jordan. I'm sorry. I had a little doubt. Sue me. Sue me. Okay? Sue me. Don't think you didn't think it too. Okay? Nevertheless, what I really liked about this iteration is I feel like in other of the Fantastic Four films, they underestimate, like, they made Johnny feel very dumb, like, very himbo, very stupid, very, I just want to be with women, like, womanizer kind of character. And I feel like, sure, cute, whatever. I feel like this Johnny, they underestimated him more because he was young and not because they didn't think that he was intelligent. Because if we go back to the beginning of the film when they're like doing the flashback to them originally going into space, Reed himself said that I collected the brightest scientific minds. So he brought Johnny not just because he was Sue's brother, and like he brought him because he's smart. And if you see throughout the film, like, yes, they underestimate Johnny like a little bit, but it's giving very much like you're younger than us. We view you as a little bit of a child, like not because you're not intelligent, but because you are younger. And I appreciated that too. I think too, let me say that the team trusts Johnny when he like when they like know that there's like we need to lock in. They'll be like, "Okay, Johnny, let's go." And he locks in and they know that he'll lock in. I appreciated that. I appreciated that they underestimated because he was young and not because they made him seem dumb. Because in no world would Reed Richards, the smartest man on the planet, bring a stupid person up into space with him.
No room for dummies.
And I really like that.
I like that too. I think it's interesting to think that you can set characters up to surprise you. That's a lovely thing to do in a film. And I think Johnny was that. Like, did I expect him to decode a whole alien language? No, I didn't. But he did.
But he
And
did.
he contributes to saving the day. I do think too, like the sibling relationship between Sue and Johnny was really love. That was something that I think they did really well. And it was that nonverbal communication like that, like the looks between them and the understanding, just like you could see their relationship and how they interacted. That's what I wanted from the other characters, and I think this sibling relationship did it really well.
I was also gonna talk about that as well because that was something that I really loved about the film, that their sibling relationship was so believable to me, and it came in when, um, Miss Girl came down to Harold Galactus.
Okay, we need to take a moment. We need to take a moment for the Silver Surfer because Mama hit it out of the park.
Mhm.
I herald your beginning. I
I
herald
herald
your
your
end.
end.
I
I
herald
herald
big pause, big pause. Galactus.
Galactus.
And her arc was great too.
Very much so, very much so. But moving back to our original point, which was a sibling relationship, the point when he got onto her little thing, she said those words to him. He came down, he's explaining it to the team. He's like, "Hey, hey guys, she spoke to me. She spoke to me." And again, this was a moment where I really enjoyed the team's relationship because this girlina just came in and said, your planet is marked for death. And they're sitting here teasing Johnny about his space girlfriend. Like, yes, girl, like, your girlfriend spoke to you. Okay. Like, okay. And they were teasing him, whatever. And then the next scene is Sue coming into Johnny's room. And it was just like such a sibling moment. Like, yes, I just teased you in front of the whole gang. But like, if you're serious about this, then I trust you. Like, show me what you got. Like, show me what you're working with. And that felt very authentic to me.
Word. How do you feel about all my all my conflict analysis aside, in looking at this as a Marvel fan in the phases and how this is going to be as the start of a new journey, how do you feel about this beginning and how it's going to fit into the next Avengers?
I'm not gonna lie, I think this is a good starting point for them. I think that there is a lot that they can dive into with this team and their relationships and this baby, and I do think that honestly, the way Marvel has been recently, they needed something simple. I think they've been biting off more than they can chew recently.
Interesting.
I think people are kind of like, there's been Marvel burnout, because I think Marvel has quite honestly been trying to do too much, been trying to do too much. And so I think people appreciated that this felt the most beginning stage Marvel that has like come in a really long time. And I think that's why I'm giving it a lot more leniency because I'm like,
Mm.
I'm okay with this being the start of a new phase. Like, I can see them actually being able to develop this plot and develop these characters and to not lead us astray, not to like I'm okay with this being simple and this being just what it is, you know? So I was pleased. I didn't need them to do too much. I didn't need them to do too much.
And I said, entertain me.
I think this was us getting a breath of a reset of being like, okay, like Marvel for the first time in like 3 years, I can see where you're going. Like I can see where we're going with this. I'm happy. Like let's go down this path. Like yes, like it made us excited for a film again. Like it made us excited for a storyline again. And just us having this conversation of like these characters, I was like, yeah, let me care about some new characters. Let me crave some new characters. I'm happy.
Word. Well, what a great round one. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding ding, ding ding.
Anything else to add before we move to round two of this showdown?
I have two things. One, I need to know how much Canada Dry paid for basically a 2 hour long advertisement because that drink was it everywhere. Every time we turned into the metropolitan space, Canada Dry. And I said, now wait a minute,
They
girl.
don't drink still water in this city, okay?
And that's nothing against Canada Dry because that is my ginger ale of choice. I have a case of it sitting in my kitchen right now, but girl, a bit much on my part. And two, I don't know if you have seen this, but the girlinas online are like created beef between Renesmee and Baby Franklin as like weird supernatural CGI babies.
All right. What?
They've
How?
I don't
Why?
listen. I don't partake in the how. I just partake in the entertainment of it all. But there was one comment that really got me in this whole beef. And somebody said something along the lines of Rigatoni killed her mom. Franklin brought his mom back to life. There is no competition. And I said,
Franklin really did. I mean, that was amazing.
and I said,
That baby
snaps.
brought his mother back to life.
And I said, and right, Rigatoni, there is no competition. So, and that is what I want to end on, actually.
Lovely. Well, on that note, let's move on over to the other corner. Superman, written and directed by James Gunn. Now a former Marvel director, now changing
Yeah.
sides. You go first since I went first with Fantastic Four.
I want to start this off with I don't have a pros and cons list. I just have thoughts. But that's very fitting to our personalities.
I don't have a pros and cons list for this one.
Seriously?
Yeah, because I love
Is it because you only have pros?
I can search for the cons.
You take the time during this to search for some cons. I'm gonna be so honest. I don't think I have cons on this, like any like real negatives list either.
I was delighted. I was utterly delighted. Okay, go.
Okay, my thoughts were number one, I love a villain who is a true hater. Like no tragic backstory, no like real ulterior motive. Like he is a hater for the pure love of the game. For the pure love of the game. And I was eating that up. When I tell you, hold on. I need to take a moment because I don't know if like you know this about me, but I am a Nicholas Hoult stan.
I did
I
know
love
this
that man.
about
I
you.
love this man down. Okay. When he popped out with that blonde hair during the Superman press tour, something within me changed. A cataclysmic change happened in my body. And I said, and I don't even like blonde men. And I said, but I like you. I think he's so fine. In my heart of hearts, I think he's so fine. And I don't like blonde hair and I don't trust people with blue eyes, but I trust him and I love him.
Period.
I think he played an evil super genius so well. He was the perfect Lex
Mm-hmm.
Luthor. Like the 1A scene. I ate. I devoured. Every time he was on the screen, he stole the show. He captured audiences. He commanded a presence. He was perfect. He was a perfect villain. He was a perfect
You're
villain, and I
shaking in
loved
your
that. I'm
boobs.
literally like actually, I'm like actually shaking.
She's
I
having a
loved
physical
him.
reaction.
Like, I loved him. I thought he was perfect. I thought he was brilliant. That's my Lex. Okay. My actually, I do have problems now that I'm
Oh,
looking at my notes. Speaking of Lex Luthor, I have a problem with the world. Okay, because
don't we all?
people are me a little bit confused because why is society trusting anything that Lex Luthor says?
Capitalism?
I know, and that's what's pissing me off, I think, because I feel like we switched so quickly, but can you imagine, like, in this world, right? If in our current society, Superman was real, and for the past 3 years, we've seen him save lives, we've seen him, like, stop conflict, we've seen him be nothing but an incredible man, and then Jeff Bezos, with his bald head and hate, comes onto our screens and is like, "Actually, Superman is a villain?" You think I'm believing Jeff Bezos?
If you're asking me if this is plausible,
I believe it's possible. I believe it's possible, but it just angers me to my core.
as it should, as it should. I mean, society loves to tear people down. They love to put
Yeah.
people on a pedestal and then tear them down. And I think this is one of, if you wanted to interpret parts of this film as an allegory, you definitely
Yeah.
could. And I think the thing about Lex Luthor that makes him so good, one, he is a true villain. I am scared of that man, but they wrapped him up in such camp as well that you
Mhm.
saw them saying a man with this much power is ridiculous. A man with this empire is ridiculous. Yes, he's scary, but he's also ridiculous. And I think that was part of how you were supposed to feel while watching this
Mhm.
film.
I agree. I do agree. It just really hit me to my core and it made me so mad. Now, on the opposite end, Superman. The reason I loved the Superman so much, and I know that there's Man of Steel truthers out there, and I love that for you. I thought it was a great film. I fully believed that this man was Clark Kent. I didn't believe that Man of Steel was Clark Kent. I fully believed that this Superman was Clark Kent first, Superman second. Like he was Superman because he was Clark Kent. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I totally understand what you mean. I think, and this was the brilliance of David Cornsweet's performance,
Mhm.
because he was he was more than just Superman. Like
Right.
you believed his life. And I did appreciate them having that little line about the hypno glasses, because logic is important. In a fantastical world, we believe the magic because of a sprinkle of logic, and James Gunn understands that balance so well.
Because not only was that, like, adding in that logic so helpful for me, but also they did it in such an authentic way to the story. Like, of course, Green
Yeah.
Lantern would be the one to spill the beans. Like, of course, Green Lantern would be the one to be like, "Yeah, I know why he's is the way he is. I know why he can disguise the way that he disguises." Like, it felt very authentic to the story, and I really appreciated that. I really loved that. But moving back to the Superman of it all, again, I felt like when he, spoilers, when he was in the box in the pocket universe or whatever it's called, and he wails when his friend or the guy who owned the food stand
The falafel
is the
man.
falafel man gets shot in front of him, the way he wails, like, I believed that. Like,
Mhm.
he played such a believable Superman, and that was really the crux of it all for me, is that when I looked at him, I was like, he is Clark Kent first, Superman second. Like, he is Superman because he is Clark Kent, and that is what I was missing in a Superman, because that was, throwback, Smallville,
Say her name too.
say her name too. He was Superman because he was Clark Kent, and his motivations of, like, why he is the way that he is because of how he was raised. And something that really stuck with me as I was reading interviews for this, and originally they were gonna take out the scene where he saves the squirrel during
I
the
was going
battle.
to talk about this scene. The squirrel is so important. The
It is.
squirrel is
The
so
squirrel is important.
important. And you can tell them why. I know you will.
You seemed very excited. I will give
I'm
this to
so
you.
sorry. Okay,
I will
pause.
give this to you.
Pause your beautiful analysis while I talk about the squirrel. Because this to me spoke to the genius of his character so much. And I'll get into this when I say my thoughts, but you were kind of implying this when you were talking about the Clark Kent and Superman of it all. They made his greatest strength his fatal flaw, his
Mhm.
kindness and blind
Trust.
trust in humanity and his blind motivation to save human life at all cost is both his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. And the larger theme of talking about calling into question Superman's humanity. You know, is he a human? Does he belong on Earth? Is he really here to help us or to destroy us? And you see Clark Kent doubt his own humanity. You see him say, I don't belong. And because he values humanity as an external thing, he doesn't equate himself with it. And it's going home and seeing his family, his adopted family, that reinstates this concept of humanity in him. And in order to set that up as a conflict, you need to take it a bit too far. And that's the saving of the squirrel. Like the fact that Superman, in the middle of a battle, while he's thinking about human life and the damage of the city and the Justice League, like he will save that squirrel because he can't not save the squirrel. And that is Superman's legacy. Like that's how he fits into the universe of superheroes and leaning into that instead of trying to make it this darker conflict of just simply
Mhm.
saying like he's kind to a fault. That's what Superman is. He's supposed to be this like perfect squeaky clean like savior of the superhero world, similar to what Marvel did with Captain America. Like what happens when that goes a little bit too far?
I was lit gonna bring up Captain America. I was so gonna bring up Captain America because I saw so many people, mainly Man of Steel truthers, bringing up the monologue that Superman did with Lex at the end of the film, where he's like, "I am human. Like I feel like all of these things." And people were like, "Oh, like, that monologue wasn't necessary," and like, "Da, da, 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 da." Did we forget how absolutely corny Captain America was? Like, did we all forget
It's a
how
part
high
of the
on his it's
curriculum.
literally it's literally part of his character arc is that he had to kind of, like, grow out of this, again, like, kind to a fault and, like, like, this value of human life. It's like he doesn't kill, like, that's why he was like, "The shield doesn't kill," and that was a whole thing in later Captain America situations, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing, like, this is just who they are to their core, and it's like, you're seeing them, I'm like, "This is who he is. This is who he is. This is just who he is," and I think it was just so beautifully done.
And while we're on the subject of Man of Steel, I think it's really interesting because that's my most recent memory of another Superman film. Like I said, Gen Pop. If there are others, I didn't see them and I'm so sorry. But it's really interesting to look at not just those two films, but the culture those two films were premiered into. Because I think that Man of Steel was the product of a Dark Knight society, a Dark Knight
Mhm.
world, in
Mhm.
that the Dark Knight made superhero films auteur. I'll say it, basically. Like Christopher Nolan, like made those films an entire world in of themselves, and Batman is the perfect character to go on that dark,
Yep.
twisted journey
Mhm.
because that is who Batman is. That's the playing field that you inherit when you inherit that legacy, the legacy of Batman. And they try to apply that same darkness and like gritty, like Breaking Bad, like anti-hero sentiment to Man of Steel, and it doesn't work with Superman. Like it was like flowing against against the current and going against the grain, and it's all well and good to reinvent, and like, that film was an important exploration, like, what if we do make Superman darker? And that's valid in its artistic exploration, but I just don't think it works versus, like, this film that is leaning into that saccharine sincerity and saying, "Actually, this is integral to the character, and we're gonna see, like, what conflict becomes of this instead of creating, like, infusing conflict into the character. Let's use what the character already has and see what conflict that breeds." And in a world that is kind of, like, craving sincerity right now.
Mm, I definitely agree. Yeah, wrapping up my thoughts, not all of them, but I'm gonna wait to see what you have to say.
We'll ping pong, we always
We'll
do.
ping pong. Is going back to the parents of it all, baby, when I tell you when Lewis homegirl brought Clark in to his parents' house, and then the dad was like, "Is my boy gonna be okay?" Tears. Tears I sobbed. And then the next morning when they're out on the bench and the dad was giving his little speech and he was like, "Parents aren't for telling their kids who they are, it's giving them the tools to make fools of themselves on their own." Baby, I was boohoo crying. Each time, I watched it twice and I cried both times. I cried both times. And that is what I want from a superhero film. I want to feel. I wanna feel. I was reminded of why I enjoy a superhero genre in the first place. Like, and this is my final point, is when I watched this film both times, I remember very vividly there was, like, preteens and teenagers in my cinema, in my viewing screening room, and each time, like, during the final scene, you'd see them, like, just, like, on the edge of their seat, like, literally leaning forward,
Lean
like,
in.
literally leaning in, like, on the edge of their seats watching this, and just, like, the look on their faces, and I'm just like, this like, that's reminding me of when I watched, like, Iron Man for the first time at their age. Like, this is giving me when I watched my very first superhero film and fell in love with the genre and fell in love with these characters and viewed something like someone who was supposed to represent all good and, like, be a hero, and that's what people have been missing, like, people don't have superhero fatigue, like, people want superheroes to be superheroes again, like, they want to feel something, and that's what this film did, it made us feel again.
Yeah. That reminds me of I saw this video online that, the composer of the film, was working on, like, the Superman theme, like, the main theme of Superman that comes on every time he flies. And he had his, like, 4 or 5-year-old son in the booth with him when he was, like, reviewing these tracks and, like, going and making the theme. And there's this video online of the theme playing and the little boy is playing with a Superman action figure. And you're just like, "That's what it's about." Like, that's why we're doing this, and that's why it's so important to make these specific character decisions because that little boy needs a Superman to believe in and needs to be swept up in
Yeah.
that, in all that it is. And moving into my thoughts, I think that's so important because, again, this Superman did not exist in a vacuum. And one of my favorite scenes in the whole film because we need to talk about Lois. We need to talk about Miss Lane. Um,
I knew you would.
I
I
was
knew
gonna talk
you
about my
would.
girl. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel cut it up, and I loved it. But I think one of my favorite scenes of the film was towards the very beginning when Lois is interviewing Clark as
Mhm.
Superman. And it starts off as this kind of like hee hee, like we're flirty and it's a joke. But then Lois says, Are you for sure? You want me to do this? Okay, cool." And she goes completely into her journalist mode. Lois
She
was a
locks in.
journalist in this film, and I know that's, like, dumb to say because we know that's her occupation, but what I mean by that is that you saw her act as a journalist in this film
Mhm.
time and time again. She's not just dating Superman. In fact, that's kind of the least interesting thing about her, which is amazing in this film, and they use that conversation to introduce these kind of harder, more nuanced thoughts about Superman living in a very international, connected geopolitical space. And by having his love interest ask these hard questions of, why did you go into that country without consulting the rulers of that country? And why did you do this? And did you actually think about they see you as a representative of America and they see you this way? And he was like, people were gonna die. And she was like, I get it. And that is what makes you you. And that is what fuels you. And that's beautiful. But let's think about the larger picture because there might be a better way to save these people and not cause more damage. As in, like peripheral, sort of political damage. And it's just so smart they had her ask those questions to him
Mhm.
because it ruffled the feathers without making it too aggressive. And like you
Yeah.
still maintain, like we were saying, the Superman that you can believe in, and you still agree with him. You'll still say, yeah, people were going to die, and you're Superman, and you save them, and that's what you do. But let's just zoom out for a second. And that's enough. Like, that's all kind of what we needed for this film to exist in the real world and make us believe that Superman can exist in our world. And that's really important. And so let's bring myself to my peripheral thoughts. Favorite character award goes to Mr. Fantastic. No, Mr. Terrific. Oh my God. See,
I thought you were
Fantastic.
gonna Fantastic is in your mind. I thought you were gonna pick the dog.
Okay, but here's the thing. So my favorite character is Mr. Terrific. He was incredible. Mr. Terrific was so great because he was so integral in moving the plot forward, but you could see how Superman was affecting him. Like you could see that the Superman ethos infiltrating him and like changing him and how he operates as a supernatural being, and he was just so charming and slick and gorgeous, and I loved him. But on to the dog. We need to talk about the dog. The dog was a big part of why I saw this film. Okay,
Right. Of
this dog
course.
got my butt in the seat. Um, and I think it's so funny that the dog was a bad dog. Like that is such a fun choice to make. That this dog was not good at his job. This dog didn't help. Well, he helped Superman in the end, but again, this goes back to saving the squirrel. Like Superman keeps that dog around because he's Superman and he cares about life and he has empathy and he's going to protect this annoying as hell dog because it's his dog and he values that dog just for being a dog and not necessarily for being this super being that could help him or like, love it. Well, okay. Ring ding 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 ding. This battle has come to a close and I think there's a clear winner.
I think there's a clear winner, and as a Marvel stan myself, we have to give this to Superman.
That concludes our play segment of the
Yeah.
podcast. And we're going to go right into rewind. So, for the rewind today, as we wrap up summer,
Summer.
summer, summer,
Summer. Summer.
as September beckons, as, the apples and the pumpkins call our names, what better moment to pause our excitement for our fall watches and take a moment to talk about some of our favorite films of the summer season. And so Danny and I have picked a couple films each that we want to highlight and just chat about because we're excited that we saw them. And these are not necessarily films that were released this summer. These are just films that we watched this summer that graced our eyeballs for the first time this summer. So some are decades old, some are new releases, and we want to have a little wrap-up party with y'all in this rewind section. So Danny, why don't you kick us off? What is your first film of the summer?
My first film of the summer is one that I have been really excited about. This was my most anticipated film of the year for me personally. And it was How to Train Your Dragon. Listen to me. I loved the animated version of this film. I thought it was beautiful. It's one of my favorites of my childhood. And recently, remakes haven't been hitting as much. And so I was a bit cautious going into this. But to me, as for me and mine, they hit it out of the park. They hit it out of the park. Mason was such a good hiccup. Like you wanted to root for him. He was so clumsy. He was a bit of a mess up, but he was trying. He was trying so hard. And his relationship with Toothless was just so beautiful and so perfect. And speaking of Toothless, I loved that he wasn't like a super like hyper realistic CGI dragon circa Game of Thrones-esque vibe. Like he looked like he was just plucked from the animation and just like put into this world with just
Fantastical.
a little bit more details, you know? And I loved that. I loved that so much. Um I loved that the, actor that played the dad in this was also the voice actor of the dad in the animated series. I thought that that was
Oh, I love
perfect,
when that
and it was a
happens.
perfect full circle. They were like, "You can't outdo the doer," and just hired him back. Hired him
Word.
back. I think Nico Parker was such an amazing Astrid, and for me, I loved that they um, built a little bit more backstory into Astrid's character and could give us a bit more of an insight in her motivations and why she is the way that she is and why becoming such an incredible warrior and such an incredible Viking meant so much to her. And I think that added depth in her character was brilliant. And I just think Nico Parker is beautiful, and I think that she played Astrid wonderfully. Um, and yeah, I know that critics are pretty harsh on remakes, not completely unwarranted. Um, but I was this as great as the original? Again, I don't think you can outdo the doer. You can't outshine the shiner. But I think that there's room in my heart to love both of these equally, and I felt that same childlike, like, wonder and joy, and I remember just sitting in there and I'm like, "I feel how I felt when I watched this for the first time, and I'm feeling giddy, and I'm laughing, and I feel like a kid, and I'm enjoying this, um, for what it is," and it was just yeah, it was really beautiful, and I loved it. It was just a very joyful watch, and I think that's what I needed.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
Um, my first pick of my top summer films, is not a new release. It is in fact from the 1980s, and it is called Broadcast News, written and directed by James L. Brooks. I loved this film. This film is delightful. This film is warm and funny, and we all know I love a rom-com, and I take them quite
Mhm,
seriously.
mhm.
I am a student of the genre, and I am. And this to me was one of, the forefathers of this is the rom-com playbook. And I say this because this film so mastered the art of show don't tell. And when you're telling a story about people falling in love with each other or love triangles or just relationships between people, it is so hard to create shorthand because the audience is meeting these people for the first time even though they've been friends for years and years and years. And just to give a quick synopsis, this film follows Miss Jane, and she's this broadcast news producer in the 80s, and she's not, like, the best socially, but she's damn good at her job, and she's quite abrasive and funny, and she finds herself in a little love triangle between her bestie and this new hot dude anchor on the block, um, but the history between her and her friend is just so evident. Like, I felt like, "Oh, yeah, they've been friends for years," and just this expertly crafted shorthand between them, which is so hard to do. Um, so I loved it, and it got me thinking a lot about, like, life before a 24-hour news cycle, which I don't even really remember, because when they were breaking news, they were breaking news, and there was just this novelty, um, to how they like, crafted news as if it was, like, its own mini movie, and it was lovely. So if you want a fun, like, Sunday afternoon watch, you have the windows open, it's like a nice crisp summer into fall day, this could be a transitionary film for you, and I loved it.
I love that. That sounds fun.
It was glorious. What's your next one?
My next one, again, both of these were summer releases for me. Um, and I was battling about which one I would choose. I know I told you about this, but ultimately I decided my last film will be Together. The horror film that body horror that recently came out. And I will be referring to my notes on this because I do have quite a bit of thoughts.
I'm so interested to hear about this. I love hearing about horror films because I can't watch them because I'm scared of
Scaredy
everything.
cat.
But I couldn't even watch the trailer for this because I was just so affected by the gore in it, but I'm just so intrigued on the themes and the characters in this.
That's been a general consensus is that people looked at that trailer and was like, no, thank you.
No.
No, thank you. So this was a body horror directed by Michael Shanks, and it was his feature film debut. And oh my god, there's something about a directorial debut, like feature debut, that really sits with me. Um, and I appreciate it a bit more, and I give it a bit more leniency because I feel like art is a learning curve. And I do believe that obviously you get better over time, but there's something so raw in a debut because it's like you're putting all of your emotion and all of your like energy into this because this is your first child, like this is your first baby. And I think that there's just something always a little bit more playful and always a bit more risky
Mm.
about a debut. And I definitely felt this in this film. Um, so as I would describe it is it's a codependent relationship body horror. And it's an exploration of codependent relationships and how in those relationships, like, 2 partners can, like, lose parts of themselves in this relationship and, like, morph into one person. Like, you see it all the time, like not all the time, maybe, but it's, like, 2 people who are, like, together, like, 24/7, like, they don't really hang out with other friends, like, their interests and their hobbies and their sense of humor and, like, everything that makes them unique and individual kind of, like, coagulates and, like, becomes one one personality and, like, one being. Uh,
It's like the discourse online of like, are you a girl with a boyfriend or are you a
you
girlfriend?
girlfriend.
Like, where does your identity lie?
Exactly, exactly that. And so it really dove into this topic or the discussion of long-term partnerships and are you with this person because you're like you've settled and you've been with them for so long and it would hurt more to like separate and you've just like already settled and you're already just comfortable in this relationship and there's no reason to break up? Or are you with this person because you genuinely are in love with them and can like imagine the rest of your life with them? And
Mm.
I do, and there is a difference. There is very much a difference. Anyways, I think that Shank's directing of this film was a masterclass in breathing fresh air into an already well-established film genre, and it felt almost like a horror rom-com in a sense.
Oh.
Like, it's such a weird way to describe it, but Dave and Allison are so brilliantly funny.
Married in real life.
Married in real
Trivia.
life trivia, married in real life, but it was so darkly comedic in a way that I think that only they could pull off, and not only because they're incredible comedic actors, but because, as we were saying, they're married, like, they
Mm.
have a very integral real life chemistry that was so necessary to pull these characters off. I don't know, I thought it was incredible, and it was beautiful,
Wow. Well, color me
fantastic film.
intrigued. If I ever get over my, fear of horror films, this would be top of the list. Sounds
I
incredible.
think you should definitely give it a watch. It doesn't get bad until towards the end.
Okay. How would you rate it on, like, a scale of, like, the substance to Kara throwing up.
I feel like if you could watch the substance, you can watch this.
Okay.
I
Sounds
think.
sounds like a challenge to me.
I think if you could watch the substance, you could watch this. I think.
Interesting.
I would confidently say that.
We shall see. Okay, well, to round out our summer film wrap up, I will say my second pick, and that is The Godfather.
Right.
Because,
Right.
as we know, on this podcast, the Pause Pod girlies are big advocates of when a film finds you, a film finds you. And there should be
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a film that you should have seen by now. It doesn't exist. And so this is the first time that I watched The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. The king himself, and the rumors are true. It's an excellent film. It was incredible, and I think I was just so taken aback by you getting to see in real time the making of an antihero. Like, Michael Corleone,
Mm.
played by the legendary Al Pacino, like, over the 2.5 hours, you see him, like, descend into darkness, and how he treats people and how he sees the world slightly change over the course of this film and what happens to him. And the other thing that really stood out to me was the patriarch in this film. So, Vio Corleone, who is the patriarch of this mafia family, played by Marlon Brando, which the cheek acting that man did, incredible. The cheeks were a separate paid actor. Like, just the way that he held his voice and his face to make this character distinctive was incredible. All jokes aside, it was an incredible performance. Because you always just hear about this film and about, like, you know, this and the day of my daughter's wedding and just like the mafia and like Italian culture, like all these things. And I didn't kind of stop to think, like, this is also a film about fathers and sons and how legacy can change. Because when you first meet this family and you see Vio um rule, he rules through this like favor economy. Like, it's not just intimidation and violence. Like, he creates loyalty through this twisted sense of family, and every favor that gets done to him, he repays, and every favor that he does, he expects payment in return. And it's quid pro quo, but it's like weirdly warm and like has its own sense of twisted morals. And so then seeing Michael come in and see his father's power in a different way, and he's supposed to be this golden child who's like the only civilian in the family. Like, it's just decided that baby Michael doesn't have to be in the family business, and yet he's the one that ends up, spoiler, taking over as patriarch and kind of losing his relationships with his brothers and the found family that his father has created along the way. And it's just fascinating. Anyway, so I highly recommend, if any of you darlings haven't seen The Godfather yet and you've been intimidated by the film bros in your life, take an afternoon, close those curtains, create that home cinema, and maybe eat some Italian food while you do it, just
Oh my
for fun.
gosh. Throw some lasagna in the oven, babes.
Do it, babes. So, yeah, so that concludes our summer films. So excited for fall. So
Yeah.
excited for fall.
Speaking of fall, fast forward, what are we looking forward to?
Well, so when I was doing the research for the Fast Forward and Film News segment, I had a bit of an idea. So I'm throwing this out there now that I want to do a new series of spotlighting different production companies and production companies that I think are putting the darling in indie darling.
Love.
Thanks. Because as I was looking at different headlines and upcoming films and anticipated films, I noticed a bit of a pattern with this company that has come up a couple of times in my, just world of looking at films, which is Pinky Promise Films. So this is a production company that's only 5 years old, was created during COVID, but thus far has produced Andrea Arnold's Bird, Gia Coppola's The Last Showgirl, and are behind one of my most anticipated films of the fall, which is Eleanor the Great, Scarlett Johansson's directorial debut, and the
Yes.
debut of a first-time screenwriter named Tori Kamen. This film premiered at Cannes and is coming out in September, and I'm just so excited for this film. It follows, an older woman, played by June Squibb, who loses her best friend. And that loss kind of throws her into this like Dear Evan Hansen type situation where she adopts a lie. And that lie pushes her towards really genuine and amazing friendships, but at a cost. And having like a woman in her 80s be the main character of this film, I'm just so fascinated. So, who are Pinky Promise Films? The CEO, it's helmed by two women. The CEO is named Jessie Burgum, and the president is Kara Durrett. And yes, that is spelled Kara. So I said, "Hey, girl,
Twin!
twins!" And the wannabe actor to assistant to producer pipeline is real. Because in reading up on these two ladies, they both come from performance type backgrounds, and then kind of realized that they wanted to be more on the producerial side, and one of them was an assistant, which I can relate hardcore to. And when they're telling the story of how they met, because they met both working on a film set, it is like out of like a love story rom-com. They talk about like like locking eyes across the room and like talking about like their ambitions and the kind of films they want to make, and it really was giving Frances Ha to nod to our last episode. And I just like couldn't help but feel this conviction of like two women who just like fucking love film and just really want to tell stories and like finding kindred spirits in each other. Y'all, you know I was obsessed. So I wanted to point out something that they have on their website, which is their 4 unwavering principles as a production company. Number 1, do the right thing right now. Number 2, be all in. Number 3, admit we don't know, then go find out. And number 4, embrace magic. And I think that is just so evident. Like, in 5 years, their resume is stacked, and they really talk about wanting to prioritize not only uplifting new filmmakers and finding new talent, but specifically talking about having repeat customers and building alumni. And
Oh.
there's a quote from this article that I was using to research this where they say, like, their dream for their company is to look at the Best Picture nominees and just smile because there are Pinky Promise alumni involved in those films. Not even necessarily films that they've produced, but they just really want to harness new talent and make films that they're excited about. And I think they're doing just that. Everything on their slate, I'm really excited about. And it just gave like people who love film and making films. And in this feature film landscape, I find that really exciting.
Oh my god. The alumni of it all, literally gave me chills, and it goes back to what we were discussing a bit ago, about A24, and what we really love about A24 was their willingness to foster new talent and then, like, come back to them, like, to, like,
Mhm.
give new talent a shot and then foster that relationship and foster their talent and to keep giving them opportunities to shine. Um, and I feel like that's exactly what these girlinas are doing as well. And I think that's so important in an age where the general public like really wants fresh stories and like fresh perspectives and to see new things and to experience new stories. Um, and for them to focus a lot on bringing in that new talent and fostering that new talent is truly just so incredible and so inspiring, and I love that.
Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed my spotlight on the production companies that I think are putting darling into indie darling, and I'm just super excited to see what Pinky Promise keeps producing.
I love that. No, they've got a fan out of me, girl.
Love it. But yeah, other than that, are there any anticipated films that you'd like to shout out, Danny, as we
I'm so
move?
glad
Oh, okay.
I'm so glad that you asked.
Didn't even finish my sentence, y'all.
I'm so glad that you asked this question. In fact, because me and your boyf were literally just texting about
Oh yeah,
this.
peek behind the curtain. I know I keep saying that I'm on this journey to see if I can turn into a person that likes horror films. Um, but my boyfriend James and Danny are horror besties to their core. Like
Yeah.
what they don't get out of their relationship with me, they get with each other through watching horror films together.
Love him. No, we were just texting because we were like, oh, there's not a lot of like horrors coming around out around like Halloween. Like, oh gosh, it's really lackluster this year. But one that he said, Danny, this is your jam. Direct quote from
Oh my god, he's such a dad.
he's such a dad. But one that I'm very looking forward to, it's fall. And what comes in the fall? Football, baby. My favorite sport. And one film that I am so psyched for is Him, produced by Jordan Peele. I am
Yeah.
so excited. It is a horror look into college football. And James is right. That is my jam.
That is you to a T.
That is a me to a T. That is me to a T. And so I will be there opening night, front and center. I am sat. I'm sat. I am sat.
Well, I can't wait to get your spooky thoughts on that as we go further into fall films. Here we are at the end
Here
of
we
another
are.
pod.
Snaps. This one was full of high highs, no lows,
No
just
lows,
vibes
just vibes and thoughts from us.
and feelings.
And so it has come time to ask the question. Danny, would you like to ask the question?
I will ask the question, Care Bear, what gave you pause this week?
Well, so as this is our summer farewell episode, I think it's fitting that I share with the people that I've been having a bit of a 70s summer musically. Picture me like Thelma and Louise style, like in a convertible wearing a suede jacket, just like driving through the desert because all I've been listening to is women from the 70s. I don't know why.
Stop.
My hyperfixation this summer has been 70s ladies. So that has meant a lot of Carly Simon, a lot of Linda Ronstadt, some Carole King in there. I've just been eating it up. I couldn't tell you why. Um, and so my moment of pause is so micro and so silly, but I did have to like pause the song when I heard it. So, do you know the song You're So Vain by Carly Simon?
Yeah,
Made famous by How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Or I guess
precisely.
made re-famous, New Life.
Right.
Um and I have never really listened to that song with headphones before. Like it's a classic on grocery store radio for sure.
Right.
But I haven't really listened to it with headphones. And I listened to it with headphones and I never noticed before that at the beginning of the song, in the intro, she whispers, "Son of a gun." Like right at the beginning of the song. And as if she's like cursing to herself. I just found that iconic and delicious. Like, son of a gun. And then she just starts singing this basically like roast of this man. Um, yeah, that gave me pause. Really tickled me. I loved it.
I'm screaming. Are you going to continue this into the fall? I feel like this would be a really cool fall vibe.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe I dip into the 80s. I don't know. I'm such a
Ooh.
moth to a flame with the media that I consume. Like so I can't really plan it. But yeah. Anyway, Danny, what gave you pause this week?
I will tell you. Did you know that on the coasts of Australia, octopuses and or
Yes!
octopi are creating cities?
This is amazing.
Let me tell you something. If you know me, some lore about me is I used to study marine biology in high school. It was a big part of my life.
Huge.
So love, huge part of my life. Love the ocean, love the critters. When I found out this news, I shook it to my core because if you did not know this about octopuses, they are solitary creatures. They are very solitary creatures. They're not very social. That's not what they do. That's not their vibe. Okay. But then some scientists started seeing that they were creating little cities where they'd like put shells and there's like neighborhoods as well. And they'd like put shells and they'd live in the little shells and they're creating little cities. And there's two currently. Let me check my sources. Octopolis
Shut up.
and Octalantis. And yeah, that's what gave me pause because when I saw that, I was filled with so much joy and wonder. And I was like, guys, the ocean is cool. Protect our oceans, or we're gonna lose Octopolis.
Protect the oceans or we're gonna lose octopus. Yeah, we all need a little whimsy in our life,
Yeah.
and that is whimsical as hell, and that brings me so much joy. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm so glad that I could give that to you and to the general public.
Yeah.
That's what gave me pause this week.
I love it. Well, on that joyous note, thank you guys so much for listening. We're having a ball making this podcast, and we're just so excited to keep yapping about films with you. But I'm gonna hand over to Danny because she is the captain of our social media ship. And if y'all want to hang out with us online as well as having us in your ears, Danny will tell you where you can do that.
You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at PausePodGirls. If you want to give us a little follow and keep up with what's going on with us during the week, we share a lot of fun little things. And so feel free to follow along or just leave a review on the pod if you liked us. And yeah, we'll see you guys so soon.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye.